Hi, good afternoon. I wanted to bring something up that was put on my heart today, and that is the voice of the Father. Because I get a sense that many of you that have heard from the Father and received messages, that all of a sudden, sometimes those messages seem to get turned off. And that in a way it feels like the Father went away. And I know that feeling, and I know that it can feel extremely lonely, and that maybe you might not be doing what you're supposed to be doing. Now, I'm not going to tell you that that isn't the case, because I don't know the specific case for each one of you, obviously. But I can tell you this, is that when I have experienced that before, it took me a while to figure it out. But sometimes the Father simply stops talking because He's given you a message that you have yet to pay attention to. And so when you feel like you're stuck in a rut, He's already given you the instruction on how to get out of that rut, but you've missed it. And so He's not going to give you further instruction on where to go because you're still in the same place. Sometimes He's given you some things. He's told you to look. And so sometimes He'll stop talking to you so you pay attention to what's going on around you. And you pay attention to the things with the eyes that He's given you and the ears that He's now given you. Because what He needs in you is leadership. That doesn't mean that you have to stand out there like I do and scream it from the mountaintops. But leadership can also be a quiet leadership. Sometimes just walking and having people walking behind you is leadership. You don't have to say a thing at all. If they're following the way that you walk, then you are that leader. So when the voice of the Father quiets down, the one most important thing for you to recognize is that it isn't something that you've done badly. It's simply something that you need to listen to and pay attention to. Now, we usually get down on ourselves because that's what the accuser within us also does. So the voice of the Father quiets down, and it's now the enemy has the opportunity to be heard and simply says to you, you know God's not talking to you anymore because you're this and you're that. And he'll start speaking to you in your own voice and convincing you that you're not worthy of the Father's voice, and that's why He's not speaking. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Father doesn't change His activities because you aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing. He simply allows things to happen so you might see what He needs you to see. The Father is the master of all of these. Christ, being the master of these lessons, has spoken all of these things to you. Elijah the prophet, he found the quiet whisper of the Father. So sometimes you can't hear the Father's voice because you're too busy with yourself, and you're too busy with your own voice and screaming at what you think you know. So I found that the best way to find the Father is to back up into humility always. Start with the I know nothing. Because sometimes we get stuck in the rut because we think we know something. And that something seems to strap us to a specific belief or a specific idea. Pay attention to the words that you say, the I and me and myself, and you'll start to find that you've gotten very involved in the truth rather than allowing the Father to speak the truth into you. It's also very important, as I've said, that the things that I speak of and the things that I tell you, that you go find these truths on your own as well and have them redefined so they are your truths and not mine and mine alone. Man is corruptible, and that doesn't mean that I will be corrupted. But man is corruptible because also you can be corrupted. I've seen many people fall away because somebody's lies has convinced them that I'm not worthy of listening to and that the things that I'm speaking of aren't the Father's. And so that one person's statement can influence them and corrupt them. And then they ignore the truths that I've spoken because they never accepted them for themselves. They accepted them as though I owned them and I was giving them to them. These equations, these tiny little simple ways that we do things are so super critical. How you receive something and how you give something is the most important thing that you can pay attention to. Everything you receive, how did you receive it? What was the motive behind giving it? What was the motive behind you receiving it? So all of these things, when I speak of taking every thought captive, this is what I'm speaking of. When I speak of taking every word captive, this is also what I'm speaking of. So if somebody gives you something, you need to evaluate the motive by which you are receiving it. Because what are you going to do with it? What are you thinking that you'll be able to accomplish with it? This is again yet the ring that people see, and they want that ring because the ring is power. It's ultimate power. Now what would you do with that ultimate power? Well, in us, mankind, we think, well, we would only do good with that power. But the reality is, everybody that obtains ultimate power in this world does, in the name of good, incredibly evil works. That's why a hobbit, somebody so simple, so humble, and so much smaller than everybody else, not a man at all, but that humble, flat-footed spirit within you that only wants to dance, sing, and garden. So if you want to have these things, first receive them in that humble spirit. Become the hobbit. Become Frodo carrying these things. Don't have a motive behind them. Don't be so interested in showing it to somebody else. Let them first see it in you and let them ask about it. And then you can show them how it's changed your life. That's your testimony. And that's why these testimonies are so powerful. So I wanted to give you this quick word today and let you know that voice of the Father that seems to be quieted up for the past few days for many of you, I can feel it. And I can see it out there. And it feels like darkness is crouching upon you. Well, sometimes that's actually necessary. It's necessary to be able to see the dark sometimes in order to find the things that are hidden within it. The truth hides in dark places. This is why you have to shed the light on the truth, because it doesn't exist in the light, it exists in dark places. So when some people ask me why I wear black, I usually try to respond with something more humorous and say, that's so when I go into the dark places to find truth, that they can't see me. So I love you very much, and I just wanted to leave you with this word today.